This is Weird Al Yankovic, and I'm here with Dave and Ethan. Together, we are Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast, episode 127-inch. On this week's episode, well, you'll just have to wait and see. And now, the greatest podcast theme song ever recorded.
It's Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast.
It's a podcast about Weird Al.
It's Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast.
Seriously, the whole podcast is about Weird
It's
Al.
Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast.
You don't have to listen, but we're glad you are.
Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast.
Wow! I love that theme song! Allow me to reiterate, that is the greatest podcast theme song ever recorded!
Hi, this is Dr. Demento, and you, Dave and Ethan, would be nothing without Weird Al, and Weird Al might be a little different if it hadn't been for me. So, stay demented, okay?
Welcome to episode 127-inch, Dave! We finally made it!
Yes! We are oh so very excited that everyone could join us for episode 127-inch, a very special episode. From all of us here at Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast, we sincerely want to thank all of you, our pretty stinking majestic listeners, for listening and supporting the podcast over the past nearly 2.5 years.
And I don't think we even need to say why episode 127-inch is such a significant episode number for Weird Al fans. Do we, Dave?
You know what, Ethan? I think we do need to say it.
Well, Dave, certainly any Weird Al fan worth their weight in Cheese Whiz already knows why episode 127-inch is such an important number.
Well, I really think we should tell them anyway, just in case some newbie Weird Al fans have joined us for this week.
Okay, fine, Dave. You're right. The number 127 is extra important to Weird Al fans because it's 1,832 less than the year Weird Al Yankovic was born.
Thanks, Ethan. Just in the off chance, I wouldn't want anyone to feel left out.
All right. Now that we got that out of the way, we know what all you really want to hear.
That's right. It is time. Take it away, Ethan. Thank you, Ethan. I really wanted to hear that.
Oh, I know you did, and I know everyone else listening did, Dave. Well, while I was making those noises, I had an idea.
Okay, just one idea?
Well, I guess I've had a few ideas over the years, but all right, get this. What if we interviewed Weird Al Yankovic himself?
I mean, of course, that would be pretty stinking majestic. But Weird Al clearly stated that he would not be a guest on our podcast on even one episode sooner than episode 2000-inch, which, as you know, is tentatively scheduled for Wednesday, August 29th, 2057.
Well, obviously, Dave. But since it's such a special number, inch and all, you know, being 1,832 less than Weird Al's birth year, what if we just played a preview of our interview with Weird Al from episode 2000-inch?
That would be great! Why didn't you just say that from the beginning?
Well, all right. Without further ado, please enjoy this preview of episode 2000-inch, tentatively airing on Wednesday, August 29th, 2057. We join this already in progress.
Welcome back to episode 2000-inch. We hope you enjoyed the ad we just played from Burrito, the super multinational finance trade organization conglomerate that also sells vegan Mexican food.
Yum, yum. We love Burrito, the super multinational finance trade organization conglomerate that also sells vegan Mexican food. And I just love their new product, the Sky High Combination Sweatband and Solar Powered Blender. You won't look like a jerk, we promise.
All right, now as we return to our interview with Weird Al Yankovic, Al, I would love for you to do a little, let's say, quote unquote, time travel with us.
Yes, Al, for this next segment, if you wouldn't mind, please picture yourself and also picture your mindset from early October 2021 for these next few questions.
Ooh, okay, sure, yeah, I can do that. I'd have it no other way. Wow, early October 2021, man, that was just before the announcement of my,
Anyway, this is such a unique opportunity for us to ask you questions that were on our minds back in early October 2021. But we have to ask this question first, or our listeners are going to destroy us. Are there any plans for a new album, new single, and or a new tour? And remember, keep in mind that this is asking as of, let's say, October 6, 2021. And we obviously already know the answer, but just go along with it.
man, that was so long ago. Gosh, it's hard to remember exactly what was happening at that particular point on the space-time continuum. I think there was not a lot going on. I don't really think I was actively working on a new album or new songs or anything. There might have been a tour in the works. I don't know. It's so fuzzy. It's hard to remember.
Oh, that makes perfect sense, Al. I understand it was a long time ago. But, remembering back to October of 2021, at that point, I had been hearing all sorts of rumors about, maybe a return of the same format of the ridiculously self-indulgent, ill-advised vanity tour, or like a no-frill type show. And, I don't know if, back then if you would have confirmed any of these rumors, but if you were to return to that format, what might we expect from that tour?
I'm kind of foggy with my memory. That was a lot. That was like decades ago. Did we do that again? I can't remember.
All right. Well, back in July of 2020, there was a rumor going around that you and Lin-Manuel Miranda were set to write and direct a Hall of Presidents exhibit for Disney. Can you shed any light on this rumor?
Yeah, I heard that rumor myself. That would be really cool. It was news to me. I don't think that's going to happen because nobody ever approached me about it. So I'm going to say that was a untrue thing that was being floating around.
Okay. Well, all right, so that's fair. But if you were to write and direct a new Hall of Presidents exhibit, how do you picture it?
It would be awesome. You wouldn't believe, Lynn and I would kill it. It would be oh man, they would have to, there'd be like a new land in Disneyland. Like Disneyland, there would be like Miranda Yankovic land.
That'd be amazing.
I think that would require that I need to get a season pass to Disneyland if that were the case.
Oh, totally.
All right. And there's another rumor, okay, that I hear frequently is that you may be either writing or planning to act or perform in some kind of Broadway play, possibly even Lin-Manuel Miranda's name's being tossed around in that. Is there any truth to this rumor?
It was bandied about for a while, and it's still not out of the realm of possibility, but it's not something that I'm actively working on right now. Lynn and I both relish the potential opportunity to work with each other at some point down the line, and that still may happen. I mean, we've done a few things together already. We actually pitched a show over the pandemic, which nobody bought. but other than that, yeah, I mean, again, not actively working on anything like that, but that's one of the things that some might happen sometime in the next several decades.
By show, is it a musical or was it a TV show?
The one that was pitched,
yeah,
and didn't get made.
Yeah.
I can't really say much about it. It had musical elements, but it was not a musical. It was a TV show. But I can't really
of course,
say too much more about it because it's one of those things that you never even mention because there's so many things that kind of like get pitched and you think, oh, they love it, of course they'll buy this, like why wouldn't they? And then it just never happens.
Can Dave and I buy it and produce it? Is that something we can do?
If you got a huge pile of money, maybe.
Dave, do you? I don't.
I'll look into it. I might have some money under the couch cushions I could scrape together. Now, I was actually at something way back a couple years ago. I think you did an interview it was 92Y in New York City, and you had said something along the lines that you had either written or pitched Airplane the Musical.
Yeah, that was one of the that was one of those many things that, you know, like I just said, that got pitched, they got talked about, and never went anywhere. So yeah, I was in discussions with a few people about doing that, and I might have actually mentioned this during the 92Y interview. I said at the outset, you know, I don't want to do this or work on this unless this has got, you know, the approval and the blessing of the Zucker brothers who did, you know, Airplane. And it turns out that David Zucker of the Zucker brothers was a parent at my daughter's high school, and I ran into him at a high school function, and I just kind of floated the idea, and I said, "Hey, have you heard anything about them doing a musical version of Airplane?" Without mentioning that I was part of it. He said, "Oh yeah, that's a terrible idea. I would hate that." Like, oh well, yeah, me too. Stupid idea. Yeah, I just thought I'd run that by you. Okay, fine. So based on that, I lost interest immediately, and it just never went anywhere.
Oh, it would have been great, I think. But, you know, you got to respect the guy's wishes, right?
Of course.
Dave wanted to ask about some rumors. I wanted to ask about some controversies, if you'll go there with us, Al. I mean, and these are not current controversies,
okay.
I would say. They're from your entire career. But, you know, there's always been the rumor and the controversy over Girls Just Want to Have Lunch. The controversy that the record label forced that upon you. They forced the cheesy compilations upon you. I would just love to know the real stories behind that song, the compilation albums.
I don't think I've been hiding any real stories. I mean, what I've been saying in interviews is basically true. I mean, I was not a big fan of the compilations, particularly in the beginning. In fact, that's one of the reasons why when Mr. Lawrence did the album art, I think you might have even mentioned this when you interviewed him. The idea was sort of, you know, the image being that my bones were being picked clean by the record company. I just thought that, you know, most of the fans had the original albums. I didn't like the idea of forcing completists to spend their money just so they could have a bunch of stuff they already had. You know, it just kind of rubbed me the wrong way, and also because it was kind of a blatant money grab. It's Scotty Brothers was doing well, but not. But they did go through cycles where, like, oh, we need a big seller in the fourth quarter, or else we'll be in the red. So let's put out another Weird Al compilation. So it was just sort of, it was, you know, I didn't love it. But it was sort of like I was contractually obligated to do sort of whatever they wanted, so that's how that happened. And then Girls Just Want to Have Lunch. Again, I mean, this is now what, 30 years ago, at least 35 maybe,
almost 40 maybe.
So my memory's a little fuzzy, but what I remember was that, you know, even though we had Like a Surgeon and Madonna was huge, I remember my record label being pretty demanding about there being a Cyndi Lauper parody on the album. They very well may have threatened not to release it unless there was a Cyndi Lauper parody. I can't. Wow. I wouldn't swear to that, but they were very, very insistent on there being a Cyndi Lauper parody. So, and which you can kind of hear in my vocal. I mean, I couldn't sound like Cyndi Lauper, so I decided to go the other direction and make it as annoying and aggravating as possible.
Which, you know, I love that song. I don't love the story behind it. I don't like hearing that, you know, your creativity was pushed, but I feel like, you know, even backed into a corner, you made a really great song out of it.
Well, I didn't want to punish everybody, you know. I just, you know, it's and I'm glad I did that song for you, Ethan.
Thank you. I'm glad to have that on the record. Now, I am curious though, you know, over your career with Scotty Brothers, with Sony, with Volcano, whoever, were there other times where your arms were twisted on something like recording a Cyndi Lauper parody?
That was the most blatant case of it. I mean, at a certain point, they kind of let me do my thing, and I'm thankful for that. But it was just very early on. The only other thing which I didn't buckle under was very early on, they really, really wanted a Christmas album. Like, can't you do like funny Christmas parodies of Christmas? Because that was like the thing. Like, as soon as like a novelty artist came out, it's sort of like, where's your Christmas album? It was again a quick cash grab because they didn't think, oh, you're gonna have 14 albums, but thought, oh, your second album's doing well. We better get a Christmas album before he burns out completely. You know, so I didn't want to do that, but I did a Christmas at Ground Zero, partly because I thought it was a funny idea, and partly because okay, this should like really put the nail in the coffin of them wanting to do Christmas songs with me.
Did you write any other Christmas songs at that time that were intended to go on that album if they had forced you to do it?
No, I didn't put any thought into that. I thought that doing parodies of Christmas carols would just be too hackneyed. It would just be like, like every kid in the world does, like, Jingle Bells, Batman Smells. I mean, that's sort of like it's so universal. Right. It's like, I mean, not that there aren't funny Christmas parodies. There are quite a few of them, but it just felt like so overdone to me that I didn't want to like add to the pile.
Right. That's really. I think you made the right call there. I think it wouldn't have been the Weird Al brand to parody Jingle Bells again, or I don't know.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Ethan.
You're welcome.
Well, we're probably going to jump around a little bit here. I want to ask you a little bit about your time at KCPR, your college radio station back at Cal Poly San Luis Obispo, where you got your start. And I remember hearing, and I think this might have been told briefly in the permanent record booklet, about someone calling into the radio station and playing a prank on you, and then you making a big announcement that classes were canceled. I just like a little more background about that story. Did you get in trouble for that, and what happened?
I did get in trouble for that. That was sort of, one of the worst days of my life, particularly at that time. It was so embarrassing for me, and I got in trouble, and I just felt like I had really ruined a lot of people's lives. What had happened? What was it was raining really hard in San Luis Obispo that night. And because of the terrain of San Luis Obispo, sometimes there are like giant puddles. It's hard to get to class because when it rains, it's just difficult to maneuver around campus. And there was an instance where some classes have been canceled because of severe rain. So it wasn't like out of the question that there might be classes canceled because of the weather. And I was on the air that night. It was, I think, 9 to 12 Saturday night, and it was raining really hard. And I was getting all these phone calls on the request line, like, "Hey, our classes canceled tomorrow?" And I'm like, I don't know, I have no idea. And I kept getting these phone calls over and over from different people. And then after a while, I was getting calls from other radio stations in town asking me, the campus radio station guy, like, "Are the classes canceled tomorrow? We're hearing these rumors." I'm like, I don't know. I mean, I'm just doing a radio show. I have no idea. And finally, I get a call. Officials call from some guy saying, "Hello, this is Robert E. Kennedy from the Faculty Administration Office, and I'm calling to officially let you know that the classes are in fact canceled tomorrow." Like, okay, well, thanks. And I still didn't want to say anything because, like, whatever. I mean, it's not my business to tell people that. But I kept getting these calls, and I kept getting calls from like news outlets, like, "What's going on?" And I finally said, "Well, I got this phone call, and I guess I should say officially school is canceled tomorrow. Classes are canceled." And at that moment, I heard that all around the school in the dorms, people were throwing paper in the air. "Oh, no school tomorrow. I don't have to study for this test anymore. I don't have to finish this term paper I'm writing. Yay!" And people were partying and having a great time. And of course, school was not canceled. That was a prank phone call from some guy, which I totally bought. And like everybody else took my word for it. And school attendance was down. I forget the number, but like 50% the next day. It was horrible. And while I'm on the air, the police show up at the radio station. And are you the guy telling people the school is canceled? Like, well, yeah, but they said on the phone, they told me. And I didn't get arrested, but I got in big trouble. And I felt terrible because, I mean, a lot of people, I mean, people were mad at me, like, "I didn't study for that test. You made me fail my report, And I've never been suicidal, but that night was like the closest I came to driving my car off the road into a ditch. Because I just felt so bad about it. I've been sensitive about the whole thing for many. I mean, now that this is like 40 years ago, I can kind of see it might be funny. but at the time, it was really traumatic for me.
Did it jeopardize you being on the radio station at all, or Like, what was the punishment?
Yeah, well, I think I might have offered to quit because I really messed up super big time, and they were at the administration at the time was very nice to me. They said, it was a mistake, and shouldn't have done it, but go ahead and stay on the air. It's fine. So they were very nice to me. They were very accommodating, and they let me to stay on. And this was very early on. I mean, they fired me later for a completely different thing.
All right. Well, we got to get into that now.
But this was a mistake. So they were fine with it. The later thing was just me refusing to follow format. Like at a certain point, KCPR went from being a real college radio station, but by that I mean like experimental, freeform, play whatever you want, learn on the job, have fun kind of radio station, to a model for a commercial radio station, because we had a program director who came into power whose idea was, well, college is supposed to prepare you for the real world. And in the real world, you can't go on the radio and do whatever you want to do. You have to follow the rules. You have to follow this tight format and do what we tell you to do. So she tried to run it like a quote unquote real radio station, which didn't seem very fun to me. And they let me do the Weird Al show for a little while longer because they said, oh, it's Weird Al. He's different. He's got this fan base and does his specialty show, and, let him have his fun. But I guess I was still too avant-garde for management, and it was sort of like they laid down the rules and said, you got to toe the line and follow format and play exactly what we tell you to play, or else you can't have a show. So they didn't really fire me, but they made it to the point where I couldn't go on. I basically quit because if I can't do my show, there's no real point for me to be on the air. And actually there was some protests after I left the air. This was a little blown out of proportion. It was front page news on the Mustang Daily, which was the school paper, saying that the graphic arts building where the radio station was got bombed as a response to Weird Al being forced off the air. And that is really an exaggeration. I think some kid set off some firecrackers or something, but people freaked out. It was not a popular decision.
Wow. I mean, so at that point, when you leave doing the radio show, what was your creative outlet? You were already doing the songs in that, but were you able to put more time into writing music?
I mean, I wasn't. I did like the college coffee house stuff, and I did My Bologna, of course, and the college bathroom across the hall from the radio station. But yeah, I mean, it was just doing the radio show was just my 3 hours to have fun, and I bring my friends on to do characters, and just to be just to be wacky and sort of develop my personality really on the air. I mean, if you listen to my early air checks, I sound very meek and timid and unsure of myself and very little confidence. And you can really hear over the course of my radio career in college me developing, some semblance of a personality. So that was probably my biggest learning experience in college, were just those 3 hours every week on the campus radio show.
Right. When we got to talk to your friend Joel Miller, he was telling us how the drink from the fire hose, the marble, and the oatmeal from UHF were somewhat spawned from bits that were done on the Weird Al show on KCPR. Are there other examples of things from the radio show crossing over into other projects or future albums or songs?
Probably, because I try never to waste anything, like any, I'm trying to, stuff that gets reused all the time, like in Albuquerque, the whole, was it the donut sequence? I think it was there was some whole sequence in Albuquerque that I think was basically part of a routine that Joel and I used to do in college.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, because I thought it was funny back then, so why wouldn't it be funny a couple decades later? And I wrote it so if I can steal from myself. I have no problem ethically with that. But other than that, I can't think of any exact examples. But I pull from the early days all the time. I mean, some of the stuff is not good enough to be stolen from, but if I can ever lift something from myself, I'm happy to do that.
Cool.
That's incredible.
All right, so while we're on the subject of Albuquerque, I wanted to ask you a little bit about that song. And did Albuquerque start as a direct parody of Dick's Automotive by the Rugburns by any chance? I mean, because after I've heard Dick's Automotive for the first time, I was pretty surprised how similar the songs were. And, I played that song for others and they kind of agree with me. So was that originally intended to be a parody?
No, it's a pastiche like any other of my style parodies. It's mostly the Rugburns. It's a little bit of other stuff like Mojo Nixon and George Thorogood and a little bit of Zappa and a few things like that. But mostly it's the Rugburns. And I saw them in concert before writing Albuquerque, and I went backstage and I told them how much I love them, and I thought they were great. And they were one of those bands that maybe not a lot of people know, and I thought that by doing a pastiche, much like Tony O'Kay, a lot of people don't know Tony O'Kay, but I've done two style parodies of him, and I think people when they found out after the fact that it was meant to be a Rugburns sound-alike, they were, for whatever reason, they were offended. Like, I thought that was a Weird Al original. Like, well, it is. It's
Right.
just, like many of my songs is meant to sound like another group, and the fact that you weren't aware of this group, that's not my fault, really. And but that was at the point where I decided that I would thank the artists in the liner notes if I'm doing a pastiche, just to make sure that they at least get their credit that way.
Oh, that's cool.
Sure.
When you're writing a pastiche, do you start writing it as a pastiche, or is it you're writing a song and you're like, oh, this could kind of fit in with, an artist, or how does that work?
I think mostly when I'm writing those songs, I know in the back of my head that that's what I'm doing. In fact, what I would normally do is come up with a song concept and then figure out what style to do it in. I used to have in my notebook, I had two columns. One was like song ideas and others were artists, and I would draw lines between the two. Like, what would be the funniest combination? Like, a song about Craigslist but done in the style of Jim Morrison. That worked, So normally I would have a concept in mind and a style in mind before I started writing the lyrics, because a lot of times that would inform how the verses would come together. And it would just help on the writing phase.
Are there any songs that you look back at and they aren't a pastiche? It's just literally you went into it just Weird Al original?
Yeah, more in the early days. At a certain point, I decided that I enjoyed writing the style parodies, and when I wasn't doing a direct parody or a polka, I would do those. And sometimes even when I did that, there were a couple instances where I would start out as a pastiche, and then it would kind of turn into something different, and it wound up like Hardware Store is not a pastiche of anybody, really. It's not meant to sound like anybody in particular. It started out as with me thinking I was going to do something, and then I wound up not doing that. So that does happen, but I think early on, the first couple albums. Talking about using old material, Nature Trail to Hell, musically, is based on a song that I wrote when I was 10 years old. I wrote this instrumental I think I called it Cyclotron when I was 10 years old. And that song was the basis musically for Nature Trail to Hell. So like I said, I never like to waste anything, even stuff I wrote when I was 10.
Wow.
That's incredible. Okay, you just mentioned Hardware Store, and I had a question about Hardware Store. One of these rumors I've heard is there was, at one time, it was being considered for a inclusion in the Yoda chant, the fast part of Hardware Store. Is there any truth to that?
There is truth to that. We played around with that, and I'm not saying it'll never happen. So thanks for ruining the surprise. But no, we tried it, and it just wasn't, because if we did it, it would have to be extremely slowed down and in a different style entirely. And we kind of figured, maybe what's the point of doing that if we're not going to do it for real? So yeah, Hardware Store. There's a handful of songs which I love and fans love, and I wish we could pull them off live. And the quality that we want to do, but it's just too hard to do. I would love to do Hardware Store. I would love to do Everything You Know Is Wrong. I would love to do, Genius in France. There's a lot of songs that are just too hard to pull off. And maybe if we expand the band for a tour or do a different configuration, I'm trying not to do songs with like a lot of backing tracks. Which is one of the
Right.
things I liked about the Vanity tour, because that's just like us on stage playing with not a lot of bells and whistles. So I try to, I veer away from having too much technical, wizardry, little bells and whistles on stage that are not part of the live experience.
So, what do you say to people that say you have not put out anything since Mandatory Fun? I mean, that's been 2014 was when Mandatory Fun came out, and now we're talking as if we were in 2021.
I feel the same way about Tom Lehrer. I mean, it's been like, what 53 years or something for him? I just, I keep waiting and waiting. And I email him every day like, Tom, what's going on, man? I'm still waiting. Where's your next album? I was pretty vocal about the fact that I probably wasn't going to be doing any conventional albums after Mandatory Fun, and that's still I think the case. I mean, I hate to draw any hard lines in the sand. I hate to I never say never and all that, but I really don't think that's in the cards. I think probably Mandatory Fun will be my last studio album, but I still intend to do music. I have obviously I haven't been very prolific since 2014 as far as music goes. I'm trying to branch out and do stuff I haven't done before, and a lot of that you haven't heard about because it hasn't gotten greenlit. There's a lot of things I've been trying to do, which because Hollywood is Hollywood, it's a miracle when anything gets made. So that's a big reason why my output for the last 7 years hasn't been that impressive. But yeah, if a fun project comes up, like doing songs for TV or shows or movies, or if I get another great idea, if something pops into my head and I think, boy, I need to do this, I won't hesitate to do it. I just, I'm working at my own pace, which as it turns out is pretty darn slow.
Well, no, I don't know if it's fair to say that you haven't, done anything since then. The Hamilton polka, the Captain Underpants theme, all the stuff you did with Portugal the Man. I mean, there's just like somebody put together a list of 140 plus different things you've done since 2014. So I don't think that's fair to say you're not being prolific since 2014.
Well, relatively. I mean, the last 7 years haven't been the busiest time in my life as far as releasing music. But yeah, no, obviously I've done a few things here and there, and but that doesn't satiate the fans that want a new album or want a constant stream of new material. And I'm sorry about that. But I'm working on various other things, and again, hopefully at some point those things will become reality.
We just mentioned Portugal the Man, and that I'm going to use that as a segue because we are jumping around quite a bit with this interview. But of course, now I'm going to back up, but I will mention Portugal the Man. But when you were intending to release your Pitiful, the famously was denied by Atlantic Records, but your Portugal the Man songs, Hamilton Polka, they're on Atlantic Records. Have they apologized? Have they changed their stance? Are we ever going to get a physical release of your Pitiful?
No, I think James Blunt's manager kind of put the kibosh on that. I mean, when we wanted it for the box set, we got a very sternly worded letter saying basically never in a million years this is going to wind up on as an official release. So okay, I hear you.
How stupid.
Which is unfortunate.
Yeah.
And aside from that, I mean, record companies tend not to hold grudges. I mean, I have no qualms about working with Atlantic Records, and they have no qualms about working with me. And, it's just one of those things. In fact, I think when Portugal the Man sent out their notice to Atlantic Records with the fact that I was going to be on their new single, they included a picture of me wearing an Atlantic Records Sucks t-shirt. So, they're fine. They can take a joke. They realize it was mostly in good fun.
Yeah, I was definitely hoping to see your Pitiful on medium rarities. I'd heard that maybe Polkamon was potentially going to be on there. Were there any other things you were considering for medium rarities that just didn't work out for one way or another?
Well, those are the two that I most wanted to get on there that didn't make it. Pokemon was just, I don't know what was going on there, but it was a legal thing where the owners of the Pokemon franchise decided for whatever reason they just didn't want that on my album. So I don't just say that's just the way they felt, and so that and You're Pitiful didn't make it. There were a lot of other songs I was considering, but they just wound up not making the album just because there's only so many tracks we can put on the album. But those two were I think the top two that I would have had on the album had I'd been allowed to.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever had any thoughts to releasing some of your older demos, older parodies and things, even on a limited basis, for the more hardcore fans?
I know that there are a small group of people like yourselves that would appreciate that. But it's like, it's like old baby pictures. It's like stuff that I'm not particularly proud of. And I don't feel compelled to, push that in people's faces. I mean, if you want to find that stuff, you can find it online, and I know you guys have. And I know a lot of hardcore fans track that down and make their own compilations, and that's fine. I mean, but I just beyond a certain point, I don't think I don't want to be remembered for a lot of those early songs. It was just me sort of like learning how to make music and learning how to be funny. And I made a lot of missteps along the way. Not that I haven't in the last 40 years, by the way, but like the really early stuff, it's best left to the dark corners of the internet, I think.
All right, I have a proposal for you, Al. I'm just going to put this out there. Would you ever be willing for just Dave and I to hear some of these unreleased old songs and demos and stuff? And then we won't share them with anyone. We'll just talk about them. Or we don't even have to talk about them. We can just hear them and keep it to ourselves. How do you feel about that?
I don't even know if I'd have a lot of this stuff. Is there anything in particular you're thinking of?
Well, we obviously have talked to Bermuda, and we know there's stuff out there. Frank Sanchez has some stuff that he's not allowed to send out. And, there's stuff. There's been rumors of a U2 polka Hot Shots theme song. There's stuff all.
The Hot Shots theme song does exist. I think I did 3 different versions of it, and I'm sure Bermuda has that somewhere. I'd be hard pressed to locate it in my files, but I think John has that somewhere. The U2 polka, I don't think. I could be wrong. John would know this. John knows everything. I don't think we ever recorded that. Maybe I don't think we even recorded a demo. I could be wrong. I don't think we ever did. I think we basically I came up with a song list and I submitted it, and they came back and said, "Yeah, no." but Hot Shots for sure that exists, and I'd be fine with you listening to that. I submitted that to who directed that? Pat Proft was involved. Did David Zucker direct that? He might have. I'm not remembering exactly, but I submitted that, and they liked it, and then they said, "Yeah, we decided we're not going to have a theme song." So. And wound up with a cassette tape in Bermuda Schwartz's drawer.
Well, you brought up the U2 polka. Was that intended for Even Worse?
I don't know off the top of my head. Possibly. I don't really remember. Again, John might know that. I don't remember what year that would have been. But U2 is one of those bands that I thought was of a caliber that they would benefit from the Rolling Stones treatment of I could do like their entire catalog as a polka essentially. Yeah. I think just to narrow it down, I think it was before what album was the Cavity Search on? I should know this. Yeah. But whatever it was, I think the U2 polka would have come before that. Okay, so it would have been pre 1996, I think, to narrow it down a little bit.
Okay. Yeah, I think famously everyone has suspected it's Even Worse because there's no polka on that album.
I don't know if that's the reason there was no polka. It could have been, but I think time fogs my memory, but I think that was more of a case of me thinking like, oh, I don't want to put a polka on every album. I don't want to be like that predictable. But then after Even Worse came out, people were like, where's the polka? I need my polka. And people were running wild in the streets. tearing their hair out. And I was like, okay, fine. I'll do polkas.
I mean, are there any other songs like that that have been, maybe you said the Hot Shots theme song, that's kind of, at least at a demo stage that has been recorded. Are there any other songs like that are demos that are out there that we should be trying to track down as hardcore fans?
Or I will add that you'll give us permission to hear from Bermuda's archives.
Yeah. Well, you feel free to listen to anything from Bermuda's archives. I'm trying to think what else besides that. Fun Zone famously was supposed to be the theme song to Welcome to the Fun Zone, and the music director said, I wrote a theme which I like better than yours, so thanks. So I would have been more mad about that if that actually became a series instead of being a one-off pilot. What else? I'm trying to think. And then Talk Soup famously was supposed to be the theme song for Talk Soup.
Right.
That didn't happen either. But I said, well, I wrote the song and recorded it. I'm going to put it on the album anyway. So, I mean, this stuff happens, a lot more frequently than I would like. But that's sort of the way Hollywood works.
There's no hidden gems that we don't know about or haven't heard rumors about.
I'm trying to think. I mean, nothing at the top of my head. Yeah, John might know, but most of the stuff is either out there or it's known about. So not many secret tracks that we're hiding from you.
I know I've always just personally wanted to hear the Dr. D Superstar in its entirety, because Dr. D has only ever released a little bit.
Yeah. Man, again, that's like high school. I was like 15, 16. So it's nothing worth preserving, really. I mean, if you wanted to hear it I don't even know who would have a copy. That would Frank Sanchez have a copy? I don't even know. But yeah, this is stuff that really shouldn't be heard by anybody.
So, okay, let me ask, so you're saying like some of these demos that didn't go out, are there any songs that have been released that you wish hadn't, or wish you could go back and change, or tweak a lyric or anything like that?
All the time, of course.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many things. I mean, production-wise, I wish I could re-record the whole first album, but I'm not George Lucas, so I don't do stuff like that.
You did one song,
and there are word choices which aged very poorly over the years. Recently, my biggest embarrassment was in Word Crimes, which I'm very proud of, and my last top 40 hit, and I love the song, but I use the word spastic, which in North America is not a bad word. It just means like some goofy, uncoordinated dweeb, basically, and it's just like a common insult. What I did not know, and what I learned very quickly after Mandatory Fun was released, is that word is a horrible slur in other parts of the world, like the UK and Australia. It basically is as bad as the R word. I mean, it connotes a person with cerebral palsy, and it's a terrible word. And people there were rightfully offended when they heard the song. I had no idea, because outside, within North America, by and large, it's not a bad word. But I learned very quickly. I apologized for it. And when we play Europe or Australia, when we do Word Crimes live, I take out that verse, because I don't want to offend people, obviously.
Right.
So it's so stuff like that. And I could go down the list. There's a lot of words I've used over the years. I mean, I will say also, in Jerry Springer, I used a few words which would be offensive today, and not in my defense. I mean, those were the words that they actually used on the Jerry Springer show. So I was being true. Well, I was being true to the nature of the show. Yeah. I was being reflective of the show, and they used those words. I understand and realize those words are not cool to say these days, but that's why I used them at the time, and that's also why I don't play Jerry Springer anymore.
And I guess I wasn't even intending to go towards words that you regret using, but have you thought of better rhymes or funnier words or anything like that? Like, is there do you want to change a word in I Love Rocky Road or, anything like that?
Mostly no. I mean, I agonize over my lyrics before I release them, so it's not often that I would go, oh, I should have had a different rhyme for orange or whatever it was. So that's not usually the case. It's more a performance like, oh man, that note's a little flat. I wish you could have fixed that, or again, like a poor choice of words that years later is not as cool. Mm-hmm. Like even the word midget, which I used several times over the years. It's just not really a cool word to use anymore. So it's language is fluid, it evolves, and I apologize for anybody and everybody that I may have offended over the years with my choice of language.
I mean, it also kind of comes with the territory of having a 40+ year career.
Yeah, I mean, we could go through UHF and talk about all the things which wouldn't be cool now.
We don't have
but
to.
But apparently, stereotypes were totally fine in the 80s. We'll see,
Well, if you were to decided to perform a song like Jerry Springer or something today, would you consider writing or changing the lyrics to like an alternate concert-only version of that song so you could put it out for the fans who do enjoy hearing these older songs that maybe you wanted to change a lyric here or there because of time?
I don't know. That feels very kids boppy to me to kind of sanitize the lyrics just for the sake of not offending people. I think I'd either omit it or just not do it. But changing it just feels, I don't know, that doesn't sit right with me somehow.
Yeah. So a while back when we were talking to Bermuda, he said that he thought there might have been a song where the lyrics had like a last minute change because one of the celebrities referencing it had passed away. Do you recall what song that was and what the line was that had to change?
That could have been a couple of things. I don't know if Anna Nicole Smith had just passed away and if that was a consideration. I think maybe what he's referring to is in oh gosh, my brain is going. In Close But No Cigar, I think maybe Marlon Brando had died between us recording the song and it getting released, or before, because so I think maybe it changed from Marlon Brando loves souffle to Marlon Brando loved souffle. That could have been what he's referring to.
Wow. Would there be a version with that alternate lyric?
I honestly don't know. We may have made the change before we got into the studio, so I'm not 100% sure. It may have been loves on the demo and loved on the final track. I forget.
The one thing that we had just been talking about recently on the podcast is with the new Apple Music update, we can hear a different version of Canadian Idiot with the parts. What was the story on that?
Yeah, I heard about that, and I'm surprised because that was
well, we need to stop right there. We cannot possibly give away our entire interview with Weird Al on this episode. What will people listen to on August 29th, 2057, when episode 2000 Inch airs?
Well, I feel like we can give them just a little bit more, you think?
So, Dave, I had an idea.
Sorry, Ethan. You already used up your idea allotment for this episode.
Well, Dave, hear me out.
Okay, shoot.
This is our first episode of October, right?
Yeah?
What do you think of when you think of October?
Osmosis.
Yeah. Well, anyway, October is Weird Al's birthday month, right?
Right.
So what if we played clips from our episode 2000 Inch interview with Weird Al all month to celebrate his 62nd birthday?
That is such a great idea. We could call it Osmosis October.
Or we could call it Weird Al-tober, or WAT for short.
Well, that's better than WAP.
All right, it's settled. That's right, listeners. For the entire month of October, or Al-tober, we are going to play clips from our interview with Weird Al from episode 2000 Inch.
All right, so let me get this straight. On episode 128 Inch next week, we interview Weird Al?
Yep.
All right, and then again on episode 127-inch, we interview Weird Al.
Well, that's this episode. This is episode 127-inch. So yes.
Oh, right. So then episode 129-inch, we will interview Weird Al.
Righto, Dave!
And episode 130-inch, again, we interview Weird Al.
Well, is that in October?
Yep.
Then that's a big ol' yep, Dave!
And episode 131-inch, we get to interview Weird Al.
Well, that one airs on November 3rd, and Dave, that's not October. You know, you're not yourself when you're hungry. I think you need a burrito from Burrito before the next phase in their corporate agenda moves them closer to the burrito of the future.
This week's episode is brought to you in part by vegan burrito restaurant Burrito in Troy, New York, home of the 2-pound double wrapped in a quesadilla burrito, and Wizard Burger in Albany, New York. Come on down to Burrito and Burrito your burrito, or hop on over to Wizard Burger for mouth-watering, loaded, dare I say beefy, vegan burgers. From Troy to Albany to your reign is Burrito and Wizard Burger. Feed the hungry with out-of-this-world, plant-based, real food, always vegan style. Visit burritosquared.com or wizardburger.com and order ahead.
Wait, before, did you say the future? Yes, we did. I didn't know we'd have to talk to you, though, Henry.
Well, you have to talk to me too, Sonny. Oh, boy. All right. Hello, David.
You know, those burritos of the future are fantastic! Except for some reason, they only accept Canadian nickels for payment in the future, so just keep that in mind.
I have one every night before I put on my sky-high combination sweatband and solar-powered blender.
Okay, guys, this was a really exciting episode for us, and you're kind of ruining it. People only like you when you're us.
Can you two at least make yourselves useful and tell us who won the Patreon raffle for September 2021?
Sure! The first winner, if I recall correctly, was Jeff McClelland.
And the other winner was JM.
Congratulations to September raffle winners Jeff M and JM. They each win a super cool, official Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast t-shirt or equivalent from our merchandise shop at shop.2000inch.com. If you want to get in on this special Weird Al related October Patreon raffle, along with all the other great perks of being in our Patreon family, be sure to join this month at patreon.com/2000inch. And because I'm in the future, I can already tell that they loved their podcast t-shirts or equivalent.
Okay, I heard enough from you. We're going to disconnect. Thanks a lot. All right, yep, goodbye. Okay, bye.
You know, Henry talking about that burrito, yada, whatever, definitely made me hungry.
Yeah, it made me hungry too. Hey, intern Frank, go get some of those for us.
All right, Dave, while our intern Frank is ordering those burrito, whatever, for us, I've got a game to play with you.
Oh, I love games. Is this at all like cribbage?
Actually, it's very similar to cribbage, in that they are both games.
Wow, cool.
All right, so you know the game 20 Questions?
I sure do. Does that count as one of the 20 questions?
No, we haven't started yet. I'm trying to introduce the game, Dave.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yes, I've heard of the game 20 questions.
All right, good. So how this is going to work is I'm going to give you 20 clues in a row, then you only get one guess. Are you in?
Well, does that count as one of the 20 questions?
No!
All right, let's do it.
All right. Clue number 1. Get ready. I'm thinking of a person.
Is it David Grant, a.k.a. Sebastian Shepard?
Well, yes, actually. How did you get that so fast?
I don't know. It was sort of the way we were both talking. It just really seemed like a David Grant ad.
Well, I didn't get to give more clues, like how his website, wolfandwool.com, you can go there and learn all about his book, The Ruins of Our Past, and how his comedy rap career got started as MC Chalkskin. Oh, and don't get me started on his TikTok. His TikTok is...
All right, so follow at SEB_SHEP on TikTok and visit wolfandwool.com.
This week's episode is brought to you in part by Discover Darwin, promoting tourism in Darwin, Minnesota. Not only is historic Darwin, Minnesota beautiful, it's also weird.
I am not going to read this thing about the beaver and the Queen of England. That sounds more like a Chilliwack thing. Gotta pass.
So visit Darwin, Minnesota on your next expedition. Discover Darwin more than just a twine ball. And after you visit Darwin, Minnesota, be sure to visit discoverdarwin.biz.
Each week, we're able to bring you our podcast absolutely free, thanks to our sponsors Burrito Burrito, Discover Darwin, Jackson Scoggins, David Grant at wolfandwool.com, and Angel Valenzuela and David Cash.
And thanks to our amazing close personal friend Patreon supporters, Allison, Blair, Frank from the Bank, Kenneth, Jared, Jake, Javier, UH Jeff, and Zeb. And thanks to Joe K and everyone else in our pretty stinking majestic Patreon family.
If you enjoy our family-friendly weekly Weird Al podcast, please consider supporting us at patreon.com/2000inch, or by picking up some pretty stinking majestic official Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast merchandise, such as t-shirts, tote bags, tank tops, and more, including our brand new line of Discover Darwin products, all by heading to shop.2000inch.com.
And after you visit shop.2000inch.com, grab your copies of Black and White and Weird All Over and check out our special book series where we sit down with author John Bermuda Schwartz as he walks us through the book, page by page and picture by picture. And remember, Patreon supporters, you get to hear every single bonus episode early.
We love hearing from our listeners and other Weird Al fans. Join our Facebook community and post about Weird Al and what you thought of episode 127-inch by visiting group.2000inch.com. And we'd love it when we receive voicemail via our official 27-hour-a-day podcast hotline, 347 Spatula. You might even hear your message on a future episode. The 347 Spatula Hotline, the official hotline of Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast, is sponsored by Angel Valenzuela and David Cash, two amazing Weird Al fans and longtime podcast supporters.
For everything about our podcast, including incredible past guests and incredible past episodes, be sure to visit WeirdAlPodcast.com or 2000inch.com and keep up on new episodes, podcast news, and events by following at 2000inch on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And thank you for subscribing and leaving reviews on Apple Podcasts, Podcast Addict, Spotify, Stitcher, or your favorite podcast app. And if you want a quick and easy way to listen to the podcast, just say, "Hey Alexa, play Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast."
Thank you once again to our guests from episode 2000-inch, Weird Al Yankovic. Also thanks to John Bermuda Schwartz, and thank you to the Grammy Award-winning Jim Kimo West for our incredible theme song. And a big thanks to all of you, our listeners, subscribers, Patreon supporters, and sponsors, and everyone else who makes our podcast possible.
Thank you for listening to Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast, and always remember to gill and chill.
Wow! It's so pretty stinking majestic that we got to talk to Weird Al on episode 2000-inch.
And you know what else is pretty stinking majestic? We are going to air even more of our interview with Weird Al from episode 2000-inch on next week's episode.
And you know what else is pretty stinking majestic? All month long we'll air clips from our interview with Weird Al. It's Weird Al-tober on Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast.
And you know what else is pretty stinking majestic?
The sky-high combination sweatband and solar-powered blender?
Well, yes, but also those sweet, sweet cooing sounds that you make. Take it away, Ethan.
That was Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast, episode 127-inch. Where do I get all those crazy ideas? I need my polka!